Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated, especially if you're coming over from my main channel. You consistently watch videos over on this channel. You might as well subscribe to get my reaction to all more minor things basketball and of course post-game recaps like this one. So should I just avoid all the O2 Clippers jokes that everybody and their mother is going to make? Because at this point, it's overdone, because after the Clippers went down 0-2 in this series, pretty much everybody and their mother was saying, okay, well, they're going to win now because they're down 0-2, because they did that in the previous two rounds to this one. And yeah, they won game 3. So it's not like the joke has no validity to it. I'm just saying it's a tad overdone, so I'm just going to avoid it. But the 0-2 Clippers are absolutely a thing, because they came into this game and looked like they had control of it for the most part. Now, early on, the shots were dropping, and then later on, they weren't so much. And same really went for the Suns. However, the Clippers got a decent lead just because their shots were dropping. But then as time progressed, it got closer and closer, and it was around tied at halftime, I believe. It was close. It was something close like that. I think it was like a 5-point deficit or something like that. But it was the third quarter where the Clippers really came alive and they started hitting their shots. Paul George hit this one shot off of the inbound where it was just like a weird turn, and they just shot the three. Overall, Paul George, you might look at the box score and see the efficiency is not the best, but I'd say he played a pretty solid game. There were a couple layups that just were like bad attempts. I mentioned in the last two videos now, or not in the last two, like covering the Clippers, even at the end of the Jazz series. There's just a few shot attempts that PG takes where it's like, you really didn't have to take that shot. So, yeah, that was the case for Paul George. But overall, he had a pretty good game, I would say. A guy who stands out once more has to be Reggie Jackson. I got to give him credit because he was fantastic in this one. I don't know what the guy did with his jump shot, but previous to when he was on the Clippers and previous to this year, because I believe he shot really well from 3 in the regular season on top of this, if I'm not mistaken. But Reggie was always like a not bad, but not really good either 3-point shooter. Like, if you're a defense, you're fine giving up a Reggie Jackson 3, but you're also not just straight up sagging off of him. However, he has been a lethal shooter in these playoffs from deep, and I got to give him credit for that. Hit a mid-range shot or two off of the pick and roll. There was a late drive after hitting a 3 that really sealed this one. Reggie just played fantastic in this one. Paul George played good. He had a lot of good passes in this one. He has 8 assists. A lot of those were to Zubac in the pick and roll, who had 15 and 16 in this game. He had a really good game. And actually, wait, I didn't realize he shot that many free throws. Wow, he shot 10 free throws. I saw him getting the line a good amount, but damn. Good job, Zubac. And he's been good in this series in general and good as of late, so got to give him credit for that. Once again, Marcus Morris didn't do much, except he was not as much of a part of the rotation today. And another player, of course, that I have to mention begrudgingly is Patrick Beverley, who once again played some great defense on an albeit hobbled Devin Booker, because Patrick hit his nose the other day. Not intentionally, but he did do it. So great. That's a good way to play defense, is to disable your opponent. But yeah, as you will know, based on the talks around this game, Devin Booker played poorly. However, most people are going to give him a pass on that one, just because it was very clear, like, a lot of his shots were off by, like, in the same way. Like, a lot of them were long, or I don't know how to explain it, other than it just felt like his shooting was off when he was taking shots, and that resulted in him going 5 for 21 and 1 for 7 from outside. He had a pull-up shot in the lane, which was like the only shot that he took where I was like, oh yeah, that looked good. That looked comfortable for Booker. Other than that, just a whole lot of awkwardness to it. Still played 40 minutes, so credit to him for that, but he was not making shots. Chris Paul. He gets his first game in this series after missing the first 2 games due to COVID protocols, and he was terrible. He did have a good playmaking game. He had a lot of very impressive passes in this one, and, you know, he's one to do that because he's Chris fucking Paul, but his efficiency was terrible. He was 5 for 19 from the field and 2 for 7 from outside. He also struggled to shoot the ball, except he wasn't punched in the face and wearing a plastic mask, so less of a pass for it, I will say, not having played the last 2 games, and I'd say it's been like, what, a week since Chris Paul has played? When was game When was game 4 of the Nugget series? That was at least a week ago, at least. So, yeah, it's been a while since he's played, so a little bit of rust maybe. So we can give him a bit of a pass there, but definitely not the best performance. There were a lot of people slandering him on Twitter, which Chris Paul sometimes gets a little bit too much credit for the success of the Suns. So him coming back game 3 after they won the first 2 games and then him playing poorly, there were people who were happy to overreact to that, which I understand it's a little bit of a sway in the opposite direction. But I just wish fans didn't do that, where it's like we have to be critical of this guy for an understandable circumstance, because there are also people who praise him way too much for when things are going well. It's like it's like kind of a necessary counterbalance, but also it's just frustrating, where it's like we have to be negative now because people were overly positive then, when it's just like, can we not say those people were overly positive and then move on? Like, why does it have to be, okay, we're going to hate on this guy now because those people are overwhelmingly positive? This is just a whole basketball thing to begin with, not just Chris Paul. It's a very common practice. When James Harden got injured in the Nets series, sorry, not when he got injured, in Game 7 when he played poorly, I said slandering him was stupid. And then I had multiple people quote tweet me, and they're like, well, those Harden fans were slandering Curry, or those Harden fans were slandering whoever the fuck. And it's like, so you're going to be a dick because other people were a dick? That's your justification? Like, that's just a shitty mentality. And it's unfortunately one that a lot of NBA fans have. I didn't mean to go on a fucking tangent there, but I guess that's what I'm doing now. Outside of that, DeAndre Ayton played fine. Jay Crowder played fine. Mikal Bridges played pretty damn well. Cam Johnson played pretty damn well. But for the most part, if your 2 best players are going to both shoot below 30% from the field, and the Clippers are going to have some guys step up shooting-wise, especially Reggie Jackson in this game, you're not going to win. That's just a losing formula. Like, it became a point where Crowder and Bridges were the guys that were carrying the Suns' offense because they were hitting their threes. Bridges hit a pull-up or 2. I think he hit and 1 pull-up at one point. And if you're at that point, you're looking pretty rough. I think the solution might have been to this, with them shooting as poorly as they did, is they should have looked for Ayton a little bit more. There were a couple of possessions, again, where he was getting opportunity to self-create, and it didn't really work this time around like it did in Game 2. But for the most part, I felt like it was just a repeat of the same, like, Chris Paul's not making shots, Devin Booker's not making shots. You're just going to lose this game at this point because they're not doing anything to break up that monotony, and it's not working. So that's really why this game was lost by the Phoenix Suns. The Clippers are now have the 1-2 deficit rather than potentially being down 0-3. I tweeted before this game that I thought the Suns were going to win this game, and then Dom2K replied, "Rusty curse." Apparently so. Sorry, Suns fans. Although I am kind of rooting for the Clippers to win because I want to go to Los Angeles and see a finals game. But yeah, I don't. I do not want. Where's my tangent? I'm going here. But I also love the Suns. That's what I was gonna say. I'm sorry for the aneurysm right there. I want the Suns to win though because I like this team more than the Clippers by a considerable margin. But also going to a finals game when I want to visit Los Angeles, that would also be cool. So I'm kind of conflicted in this series where the team I like considerably more is a team that I'd rather. I want to go on that trip, but I also want to see the Suns in the finals. So weird balance there. Anyways, so that was that game. There's not too much in terms of like actual takes from this one. It was a kind of weird game. It started off with some poor shooting. It eventually got to where both teams were shooting below 40%. But yeah, I mean, the Clippers offense is also awkward, period, even with Kawhi Leonard. So without him, it's even more so awkward because, like, as I've said a couple of times now, he's at least that beacon of consistency for them. So when they don't have that, it's just kind of like, all right, a half-assed pick and roll, a Marcus Morris post-up, Reggie Jackson with a pull-up 3, Paul George doing Paul George stuff. That's kind of just the crux of their offense. I also have to mention Terrence Mann. He had like an 8-point third quarter, which is a big part of the run that they went on. So shout out to him for that. But yeah, that is about it for this game. Goodbye.